Not sure if you're ready to buy a house yet? Well, let's go over the pros and cons. Hi everybody, it's Lisa Zamora here with PMZ Real Estate in Northern California, and today I want to go over renting and buying pros and cons. Now, you might not be ready to buy a house, or you might not think you're ready, but maybe you really are. So let's try and figure that out for you. Let's do renting first. So with renting, some of the pros are, well, if you're new to the area, you might not know exactly which neighborhood fits your style best or fits your family best. And renting is a perfect way to figure that out. You're not locked into anywhere for too long, and it definitely gives you the opportunity to live and get a feel for the area in general. Another reason is if you're working on your credit. Let's face it, credit's kind of hard, and it's not always easy to have perfect credit or the amount of credit you need to buy a house, which I talk about right here, by the way, if you want to know. So if you're working on it, renting is the perfect opportunity to do that. Another reason to rent is if you're saving money for a down payment on a house. Let's face it, it's not always easy to come up with 20% for a conventional loan or less. There are down payment assistance programs, but if you want to save up that money and have a better option for you on how much you can afford for another house, then renting might be a perfect option for you. Another pro to renting is that the landlord is in charge of the upkeep of the property. So if anything breaks or needs to be fixed, it's not the renter's responsibility, it's the landlord's. Now I know renting sounds pretty cool, and for the most part it is when you're young, but here's a couple of cons to renting that you might not have thought about. Now, when you rent, the property is not yours. It belongs to somebody else. Therefore, any changes that you make have to be approved by the landlord, and let's face it, they might not be okay with you painting their house a certain way or doing any construction on it. So you're pretty much stuck with the property exactly how it is until you move out. Another con about renting is that you're not building your personal wealth. You're building the wealth of the person who owns the property. Basically, your money's going straight into their pocket, not yours. Another thing about renting is that the rent can increase at basically the whim of the landlord. And I know what you're thinking, it's not really at the whim because I signed a contract and I have a lease, but yeah, that lease tends to have an end date. At least most of the time it does. And when that end date comes up, well, that landlord can decide to raise your rent by any amount, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So you'll either have to deal with the higher price, or you might have to find a new place to live. Another thing to think about is your fur babies, your pets. A lot of places might not be okay with pets or might have a restriction on certain pets you can have, and that kind of sucks. I don't know about you, but I love my fur babies, and I don't want to be restricted on where I can live with them. Now let's talk about the buying pros. One of the biggest buying pros is that you're improving your personal wealth or the wealth of your family. Your money isn't going into somebody else's pocket, and you're not just basically writing checks to somebody else. You're writing checks to yourself. Every check that you write for a mortgage payment is going into the value of your house, and it ends up being part of your personal wealth, meaning that it doesn't get lost. It belongs to you still, and that's huge. Another big thing about buying is ownership. That property is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You can paint it dark blue. This was actually my son's choice. You can paint it pink. You can paint it purple. You can paint it green. You can paint it whatever color you want. And there's nobody to tell you no. You can change it. You can knock out a wall. You can expand a kitchen. You can make a bigger office. There's no one to tell you what you can't do. Another reason to buy is sometimes it's actually cheaper than renting. A lot of people don't realize that your mortgage payment can actually be way less than the rent payment that you pay every single month to somebody else. Another great thing about owning your house is that it builds equity. Now, what is equity? Equity is the amount that your house is worth less the amount that you owe on it. So basically anything over what you owe on it is extra money that your house has gained for you. So you can use that in the form of taking out a loan against your house and building a new pool, or paying for your kids' college, or something along those lines. Equity in your house is huge and it's really a benefit. Now, owning a home isn't all rainbows and butterflies. Let's face it, there's some cons to it too, but they're really not that big of a deal. The biggest con is the maintenance of the house. You have to pay for the upkeep of the house. So if something breaks or if it needs to be replaced, that's all on you. Nobody's going to help you with that. And depending on your skill set, it might not be a big deal. But sometimes you might actually have to hire people to fix something. I don't know how to fix an AC, and I've had my AC that needed to be repaired in my old home, so we paid somebody for that. So it's just something that you have to think about, but it's really not that big of a deal. Most of the time, they're just little fixes here and there, like a doorknob or a towel rack that your son decides to pull out of the wall. Ready to work on finding your perfect house? Well, click here, and I'll tell you how to find your perfect realtor. See you next time.